it's about making sure that all of our processes are fully inclusive and have full equity for everybody. That's my long-term goal.
To supercharge your business, you need the tools, skills, and confidence to get customers to desire what you do. This is the place you'll come to listen to advice and debate on business and marketing, tackling the biggest challenges and unlocking the biggest wins. I'm Si McMahon. Welcome to the Content in Business podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Content in Business podcast, helping business leaders and brand owners succeed through their stories, advice and inspiration. And a really exciting conversation today. So today I am with Phil McQuillen, the Culture, Diversity and People Lead at E.ON. And I will stumble over his acronym because I'm just going to put it out there. I probably will. The LGBT Plus and Friends Network Chair, which sounds like a really important role. So firstly, welcome Phil. Thank you for coming along. And I'd love to hear a bit more about both of those roles.
Thank you, Rob. Good to be here. It's good to see you again. So at E.ON, as said, I'm Culture, Diversity and People Lead at E.ON UK. Quite interesting in that my role, rather than sitting in with the traditional HR function, actually sits within the operation. So specifically within our smart field, which is where we install smart meters for customers. We also do some solar panels, EV, that type of work. So it's very technical roles that we've got in our part of the organisation. Probably just now around 3,000 people. So one of the main bits of my role, which doesn't come out in the title, but is very much part of that culture piece, is around safety. So I have a personal responsibility for the safety of all of our people in this part of the organisation, to make sure that everyone goes home safe every single day. Does keep me awake at night sometimes because of the nature of the work that our guys are working on, gas and electric and that type of work. So it can be hard. It does keep you awake at night when there's been an incident at a customer's home, or we're made aware of something that's happened in the press, which probably nothing to do with us, but it then gets you thinking about the importance of what we do. So then, apart from the safety piece, like my title says, as Culture, Diversity and People Lead, I'm very much about looking after our people. We talk about all the good stuff and all the bad stuff. So very much responsible for how do we get the best out of all of our people, so that everybody who comes to work within our organisation can be the best that they can be. Be that from a frontline agent who's talking to customers about having a smart install, all the way through to our senior leaders, and them, acting as leaders and being responsible for their people so they get the best out of them. So it's a really mixed up, diverse role, because as part of that, I also get to look after comms and engagement as well. So on occasions I get to sit on the other side of the fence to this, where I'm interviewing and chatting to people about their roles or talking about something that they're really passionate about. Could be about mental health. So my role sort of encompasses a whole sort of mash of those things. And then on the side, and it is a side of desk, I'm also the LGBT Plus and Friends Network Chair. And as part of that, we started off as a very small UK LGBT network. One of the personal passions that I had was around how do we make sure that everybody within the global E.ON organisation feels safe, feels that the LGBT community is heard, that people have got a voice. And so I made it a little bit of a personal mission that we expand the network so it went outside the borders of the UK. Because it doesn't, what's the word we're looking for? If you look at the press and you look at the world press, you see that the further east that you go within Europe, the worse or the more difficult conditions become for members of our community. And so I wanted to make sure that in all of our different countries that we've got a real strong responsibility to make sure that people know they've got somewhere to go, someone to talk to. So we have now become the first ever E.ON UK global network. So we're responsible we look after LGBT colleagues across the whole of E.ON Group, which is brilliant. And we've had a board sponsor for the last 2 years who's really passionate about it. And is really encouraging us to grow as a network, and is always asking what more he can do to help us, and has become a really strong ally. for us as a network. And so this year, we're hoping to organise we are in the throes of organising our first conference, which will be our first E.ON group-wide LGBT conference, where we're going to get everybody together and talk about the issues and celebrate the successes of what we've done as a network. So, yeah, bit of responsibility there with that, but I also see a responsibility around, particularly as a leader in the organisation. There's very much a personal nature to it as well, because when I look at the rest of the organisation, there is no, apart from some of my peers, there are at my peer level, there is not anybody else that's out, gay, male, female, trans. There's nobody else above my level that I'm aware of that is out and proud in the same way that I am and some of my other peers are. So I see a personal, huge, big responsibility sits on some of our shoulders to go, we're the most senior people who are leaders and out. How do we make sure that people can see somebody like me? And there's nobody above me for me to look up to. So I've taken on a bit of that responsibility. But
wow,
it's an amazing network. They do a brilliant job. And, we're supporting people, that we've gone from literally, like I say, a handful of us in the UK to nearly 1,000 network.
Wow, that's a hell of a
strong in allies. So over the last 3-4 years, so it's been brilliant.
I'll tell you, well, interesting what you said there about, personal brand is becoming a massive thing now. And people look up to people as opposed to organizations, and in terms of engaging people's content, it's generally people.
Yeah.
I suppose that was, and as I know, I've known you from past, you've got such a big personality. I can exactly see why when you got your teeth into this, that it would grow as it had. What do you sort of believe has, I suppose I've led it a bit there, but, in terms of the growth of this network, I mean, you've obviously been a massive driver of that. What do you think you've done to sort of get to that point?
For me, it's been about how I can have the right conversations with people, and so let me go back. There's two things. There's one is about conversation. So being a leader in the organisation, I recognise I have access to people that not everybody else in the organisation would naturally either feel comfortable to or have the ability to reach out to. So I know that I can do that as a leader, and I can use my contacts, use those that are more senior. I'm quite open and cheeky enough to ask the questions and go to board and talk about these things. Whereas for other people, going to the UK board or going to another country's board, they would see that as a really scary and something they couldn't do. Whereas I can, so I like to be able to use that opportunity to be able to do that. So there's that one side of having the cheek to ask. It's as simple as that. I said to one of the other networks the other day, they were like, Phil, how have you managed to get some of these things? And how have you managed to get all this branding across all the sites? And I'm like, because I asked. Simple as asking. And then they couldn't say no, almost. And they could. And they have. And some of my ideas they're thrown back at me and gone, no, Phil, that's not happening. But it is on that one hand, it is about asking. And then it is, though, on the other extreme, it's about just that day-to-day driving about, and you'll understand this, about continually marketing the network and talking about it and talking about the things that are relevant. So having content you can share, talking about those topics throughout the year, because I've always been clear, this isn't just about, some organisations, we talk about pink washing and we talk about people putting a rainbow flag on their logo just for the month of Pride, whereas very much at E.ON, it's become a year-long event. It's continually, we've got Pride stuff up, and it is just that continuous marketing, though, of, when it's different days, and whether it's celebrating Lesbian Awareness Day, whether it's about AIDS Memorial Day in December, whether it's about Pride Month, it's about talking about all those topics that are important to people, and also really flagging up when things aren't right, and standing up for what we believe. So when the Qatar World Cup happened, what is that, nearly 2 years ago, 18 months ago, we as a network weren't very happy about some of the support or some of the activities that we were going to do as an organisation around it. And it was some simple stuff, we weren't part of advertising or anything like that externally, but some of the internal activity that we wanted to do. But what that enabled us to do was to start a really broad conversation about LGBT rights in those countries and how, as a gay community, as an LGBT plus community, we have to think about when we go on holiday, where do we go on holiday? Is it safe for us to go on holiday? Can we just book into a hotel room and have twin beds or a single bed if we're a couple? How do we act as individuals? So that gave us a really good opportunity to educate the business. And that for me is the big thing. It's about educating and getting people to understand the reasons why we need to be like we are and why it's so important to have the conversations.
Yeah, well, it's incredible to again have something to have when you have values and a drive for something. The passion comes across as you're talking. Like it's something you're so passionate about. I think having you as that, well, I said the most senior person within the organisation to carry those values and make sure others are heard. Well, it's just fantastic. So I suppose. Well, the next sort of where I was going to take this conversation is where's the, you've made incredible progress to date. Where's the sort of the vision, a dream for this going forward? With all these incredible things you're currently doing.
Apart from taking over the world, obviously.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Clearly. So our next stage for this is because, like I talked about, and we're very open about it within the network, we know that in the UK, and we aren't perfect, this isn't about us saying we are not, but in the UK, we've got a very robust and very strong regime around discrimination and around support for the LGBT community, everyone having a voice. But we know in those other countries where we have a presence, that isn't necessarily the case, and we know that rights have eroded. And so our big focus over the next 2 years, and we've got a roadmap that we've developed as a team, and along with, our board sponsor, to go, how do we go from just being a network to being an organisation that is seen as a world leading organisation when it comes to LGBT rights? So that externally people look in and go, E.ON is somewhere where I would want to work if I'm a member of the LGBT community. And right now, talking openly and honestly, if you did that, in some of our countries, that might not feel like it, probably. And, some of the challenges that we face as an organisation is how do we make sure that people do see us as a friendly organisation? I recognise it as a member of the LGBT community, and so do other colleagues. But how do we make sure externally we're seen like that as well? Not about pink washing. It's not about sticking some rainbows on something. It's about, for me, it's really about those day-to-day processes, about how people really feel about the organisation. So we've done, particularly over the last few months within the UK, we've done a lot of work around trans issues and making sure that documentation, that making sure processes are really clear to people so that everybody's looked after in the same way. So if someone comes into our organisation as part of our organisation and shares with the business that they're going to be going through a body change and they're trans, we've made sure that we've got a really clear process so that those colleagues are fully supported through that journey. And that's what it's about for me. It's about making sure that all of our processes are fully inclusive and have full equity for everybody. That's my long-term goal, is that it absolutely is, that's how we're seeing, and that's how it feels within the organisation itself.
Wow. So what do you think is the biggest challenge to realising that dream? What do you think? Being seen to be that organisation? It seems like internally, it seems like the processes and having people like you in the organisation will make that happen. But in terms of the external world seeing that work and seeing that vision,
I think there's two big challenges for me. There's an external challenge, because how do we get the external world to see the great work we do without coming across as pinkwashing and just sticking a rainbow flag on something. That's not what this is about. And it's how do we get across that? So some of the ways that we started doing it is by being more involved with the community, getting involved more with the local groups that we've got in certain countries, like in Germany. We've got very much involved in the local LGBT organisations, networks that they've got out there as well. Same in the UK with, we're joining Pride this year again at Birmingham and in Nottingham, and we're, proudly going to be sponsoring part of that. And so it is giving that visibility piece, but recognising it's not just about that month, it's about getting so there's that external piece, and then it's the internal bit about how do we make sure that all colleagues really understand the difference that it makes and why it's important. I'm not one for expecting everyone I'm not there here to educate people. I'm here to give people the opportunity to educate themselves about some of these things. So if I give an example, we've really been pushing for including pronouns on things like email addresses on the systems that we've got so that people can see what people's pronouns are. And a number of colleagues came to us and said, I don't get it. I'm not doing it. Why do I need to do it? And so we just gave them the information to go away and understand it and understand the why. And so literally one of our board directors said to us, he was one of the ones who said, I don't get it, Phil. I really don't. I've got to understand it. Give me something so I can educate myself. And he read the documentation we sent him and he got to understand it. And I think that was the main thing it was about for me, was about how do we then, other challenges, how do we get everybody with the organisation to say, this isn't about stuffing a rainbow down your throat once a year or through the year. This is just about making sure that everybody in our organisation has the same opportunities and feels that they've got the same opportunities. Because unfortunately, and I'm not just talking about E.ON here, generally, quite a lot of organisations, LGBT colleagues don't feel like they have the opportunity to be out at work for fear of what other people will think. And so that puts them back in their own career journeys. And that, my personal passion is making sure that everybody, whoever they are, no matter what their background, no matter where they come from, that they've got that opportunity to really develop themselves and be the best that they can be. And it sounds a bit sanctimonious, is that the right word? But it absolutely is for me about how people can be the best that they can be in the workplace and in their personal lives, because it impacts on both.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I suppose, it's, I mean, as a white, straight guy, you completely take for granted how there's very little resistance and path that I will ever likely to come up against. Yeah. And equally, we haven't actually got anybody gay in our business at the moment, but I've got lots of, say, girls in my team, and I'm a big champion of women. It's a very different perspective of, as a father of daughters, the challenges that they might face. I often reference, obviously, the time when I was actually back at Fire Angel, I was, when I joined, it was myself and Zoe Hadley at the time, who were both sort of marketing. One was, I was in retail, Zoe was in trade. And by the time Zoe had her family, both her children, I was group marketing director and Zoe was marketing managed trade, because she was disadvantaged. Yeah. Not necessarily the organisation disadvantaged, but just generally her circumstances. And actually one of my, our general manager, Megan's not long returning from maternity leave. And it was really important that there was no sort of drop back in her career. It was very much, her job is on merits, not on who she is, what her gender is, anything else. And that's really important. So this is, you're taking it to a whole other level for a section of society that is, really kind of victimized in that space.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've got a whole big topic around female. We know our workforce, our field workforce is predominantly male. So there's a lot of work we're doing around how can we encourage more females to go into those technical roles, because we know with the drive for green solutions, there's going to be more and more. There's a skill shortage for these types of skills. So we need everybody from all different parts of the communities to come in and take on those roles. And from a female perspective, we've really trying to go, how can we make sure our female colleagues who join the organisation, either in whatever role that is, that they're not penalised for having a child, they're not penalised for prioritising something different for a few months. And so but I recognise as well at the same time there's a whole load of work the government needs to do because we've got an academy at our Kings Winford office near Birmingham. And as part of that, we have people coming through and doing technical skills, and we've got relationships with local colleges. And we've been trying to say to local colleges is, how can we get more females coming through at a younger age into these roles and get females coming through? But they still see in their technical roles, a scary statistic was 98% of all of the students who sign up for their technical roles are males still. So if we're going to have 98% of people going into college that are male, we've only got 2% to up for all the different industries to fight over. And then how many of those are going to drop out as well that are female? So how do we encourage that? So there's a whole other world around that, Rob, that we could probably talk about for hours.
That's another episode.
It's another episode, indeed, yeah.
Wow. Gosh. One thing was, how do you currently promote the sort of work that you're doing? So I see things on LinkedIn, and I've obviously, because I'm connected with you personally. How do you, because the sound of what everything you've said, it sounds like there's an incredible amount of work going on. How do you promote that sort of internally and externally?
So a lot of the internal work is done through the network. So it's done by the volunteers in the team who do it all. We've all got day jobs, so they all do it side the desk. But it's just about, we've got our own internal network platforms that we use where we share things and we share stories and we encourage people. We do simple things like podcasts. We might do a quick 10-minute conversation. We do what we call time to talk sessions, whereby we'll have a topic. We'll invite loads of people to the call, and then a few of us will just talk about subjects that mean something to a lot of people, things like that. So we do a lot internally in that type of space, and particularly around Pride Month and things. We do other things as well, like events and etc. And then externally, we're getting better. We're not the best. We are certainly now through things like LinkedIn and that platform. We're using those platforms as a way of us getting that information out there. But our PR teams and our central comms engagement teams now are really working closely with us through the relationships we've built to make sure that we're getting real added value out of it. Because last year after Pride, it was our first Birmingham Pride back for a very, very long time. It actually, a couple of people commented to our new chief people officer actually said to her, I actually joined the organisation because I saw you at Pride, and that's what encouraged me to apply for a role. So we've really tried to encourage that external promotion through things like that, and making sure that we've got some visibility. Mainly through those sorts of the traditional routes.
Oh, fantastic. And then this is, we could keep going, but I'm conscious I've already overrun the time. But what is really important for me is sort of a closing question I ask pretty much every time. There will be other people potentially that could be going into a role like yourselves or in one currently. What advice would you give someone else who's starting out? Maybe more starting out, I suppose, is the best position in another organisation that's someone like yourself potentially wants to champion, these rights and diversity of culture and things. What advice would you give to them?
I think the phrase I'd use is don't give up. This hasn't been a quick journey. I've been at E.ON 8 years, and there's been meetings where it's just been me and a couple of other people for months on end. No one wants to engage, no one wants to join. It can feel quite disconcerting and feel quite lonely, but it's worth the reward. And so it's absolutely not, it's about not giving up. It's definitely the first thing. And then the other bit of advice is don't be afraid to ask. And I know I said this earlier, but you've got to have the cheek to be able to ask for help and ask the senior leaders, because there is bound to be somebody out there who's like you, who's passionate and wants that support. And once you find them, you can then build that momentum to really move and drive things forward, which is absolutely where we've got to now.
Well, I think with the E.ON example, thank goodness they've got you driving this on, because you've clearly done, so it's taken like 8 years of, persistence, passion,
Yeah.
and not giving up. So thank goodness you're there, and hopefully others can, in other organizations, can learn from a lot of what you said. Well, that was brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed speaking to you.
Great
And
talk.
for everyone else, make sure everyone check out Phil. We'll put some links to E.ON, and we'll get some other links from Phil of where you can find out more information about the sort of work that they're doing there. Potentially, if you're looking for a career and some of what Phil said resonates with you, then absolutely we'll make sure we share some links with you as the episode goes out. So thank you very much, Phil, and to everyone else, have a great day. Cheers.
Thank you.